Hey everyone, and welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network. I'm Alyssa Ashe, and tonight I'm bringing you a very special primary election broadcast in Arizona, Florida, and Oklahoma. We're going to look at those primary numbers. Now, they're not in yet for Arizona and Oklahoma, so we're going to wait a while for those, but already have some numbers and some races called over in Florida. I know some of you have been commenting over in the YouTube chat room as well. Got a lot of people on Facebook as well. Welcome. Hope everyone is having a great night. And on Twitter, I'll be shouting you guys throughout the night. And remember, of course, if we're talking about different candidates and we're kind of at a standstill at any point, really waiting for numbers, please send me a candidate that you might want me to talk a little bit more on, to check the numbers of, to do some background research on, and you can send that to my Twitter, and I'll pull that up so you can see it. At Alyssa RSBN. There's my Twitter, so you will be able to see that. And we're going to switch over. I'm going to dive right into those Florida numbers and share everything with you guys. So we're going to be looking at live numbers tonight from the New York Times. They are one of the best sources just with accurate election numbers. And so first, looking at that race for governor, it has already been called. The Republican candidate will be Ron DeSantis, the Republican nominee. Now, he was endorsed by President Trump, and so I know many of you were very excited about that. And then right behind him, so Ron DeSantis, for that Republican nomination, he is at 55.9% with a total of 729,852 votes. And now right behind him is Adam Putnam with 37.4% of the vote and 487,509 votes. And then behind Adam Putnam is Bob White, just with 2% of the vote, with 25,454 votes. And this is just with 62% reporting, 3,729 of 5,968 precincts. So behind Bob White, we have Timothy Devine, and then Bob Langford, Bruce Nathan, Don Badolf, and John Mercadant, who only has 0.7% of the vote. Now I'm going to pull it up so you can see this map of Florida. You can see all the red for DeSantis and the yellow for Putnam. And then these gray areas are where there's no results. So you can see Putnam has already taken just a few of the counties. He's taken Hillsborough, Polk, Leon, Highlands, many others, but DeSantis has taken most of those counties with the nomination already being called for him. He's taken Pinellas, Miami-Dade, Brevard, Orange, Lee, Duval, Volusia, Sarasota, Pasco, Collier, Marion, Manatee, Palm Beach, Lake, St. John, Seminole, Sumter, Martin, Citrus, Clay, St. Lucie, Hernando, Indian River, Osceola, Nassau, Charlotte, Flagler, Bay, Santa Rosa, Alachua, Monroe, Putnam, Walton, Baker, Gulf, and Franklin. Now, we've moved up a little bit. It's at 63% reporting, but the vote has already been called that it will be Ron DeSantis as the Republican nominee for governor in Florida. And still waiting for the Democratic nomination to be called. Right now in the lead is Gwen Graham, who has 387,191 votes, which is 33.5% of the vote. And this is with 66% reporting. And then right under Gwen Graham, Andrew Gilliam. Wow, it just switched before our eyes. So it was Gwen Graham at the lead. Now it's Andrew Gilliam with 32.5% of the vote. He has 409,099 votes, and Gwen Graham has 404,953 votes. And right under him is Philip Levine with 20.5% of the vote. But you can see just how close it is right now between Gilliam and Graham. They are only 0.3% away from each other. And then under Philip Levine, Jeff Green has 132,909 votes, and this is 10.6% of the vote. And Chris King has 32,823 votes, and this is 2.6% of the vote. And John Weatherby has 12,067 votes, and this is just 1% of the vote. And then at the very end, trailing behind, Lundy Lundmark has 7,230 votes, which is 0.6% of the vote. So before we go on to those other races, I want to take a second. I always like looking at this what to watch, just so we can kind of get a general idea of what to expect. So races for the governor's office and a handful of House seats will be contentious in the general election. The race for a Senate seat will also be competitive, but the primaries for both parties will not. Bill Nelson, the three-term Democratic incumbent, is running unopposed for his party's nomination. On the Republican side, Governor Rick Scott faces no serious challengers at this stage in his run for Senate. And the Democratic primary for governor features a diverse slate of 5 candidates, including Philip Levine, a former Miami Beach mayor, Gwen Graham, a former United States representative, and Andrew Gilliam, the mayor of Tallahassee. And governor candidates on the Republican side have highlighted their loyalty to President Trump, who has endorsed Representative Ron DeSantis, who, as you guys already saw, already took that nomination, over his chief rival, Adam Putnam, the state's agricultural commissioner. So a House seat in the 27th Congressional District is up for grabs thanks to the retirement of Representative Elena Rose Leftian, a Republican, and 5 Democrats are vying to replace her. Donna Shalala, the former president of the University of Miami and a former Clinton administration official, is leading the pack. Nearby in the 26th district, the incumbent Carlos Curbelo, a Republican, may face a challenge holding on to the seat. On the Democratic side, Demetrius Grimes and Debbie Mucarsel-Powell will compete for the chance to unseat Mr. Curbelo in November. So we're going to look, I'm going to pull this back up so you can see those other nominations. But real quick, I am also pulling the chat up on this screen as well, since I'll mainly be going here and I don't want to miss anything. We just got a new member over on YouTube. Welcome, First Avenger. Thank you so much for joining. And we have a lot watching on Facebook too. Normally I shout out names, but we have 119 people watching on Facebook. Shout out to Jacob Seals, who's done all of the music for RSBN. Thank you so much, Jacob, and hope you are doing well. Okay, so just getting back into those numbers right now. We're going to go through Florida, and then it looks like some numbers just came in for Oklahoma too. So we'll go through all of Florida and then head over to Oklahoma. So for the U.S. Senate nomination in Florida, Bill Nelson ran unopposed, and he was the incumbent for that Democratic seat. And Rick Scott, it was called that he won the Republican nomination for the U.S. Senate race, and this is with 70% reporting, and he has 88.7% of the votes with 1,268,305 votes. And you can see Florida is all yellow for Rick Scott. So you can see a long list of counties that he already took. And then for U.S. House District 1, Democratic candidates running are Jennifer Zimmerman, who right now has 64.8% of the vote. She has 4,238 votes, against Phil Ear, who has 2,307 votes. He has 35.2% of the vote, and this is with 22% reporting. And then over on the Republican side, we have Matt Gaetz, the current incumbent representative, with 17,703 votes and 62.8% of the vote. And behind him, Chris Dossev with 9,087 votes and 32.2% of the vote. And then John Mills with 1,397 votes, 5% of the vote. And for the representative of U.S. House District 2, on the Democratic side, we have Bob Ratcliffe with 24,711 votes. This is 52.5% of the vote, running against Brandon Peters, who's not too far behind him. He has 22,501 votes, and this is 47.5% of the vote. And the Republican nomination has already been taken by Neil Dunn, who is the uncontested incumbent. And over in U.S. House District 3, on the Democratic side, we have Yvonne Hayes Hinson with 25,296 votes, and this is 59.7% of the vote, and this is just with 87% reporting, so almost there. And right behind her, Tom Wells has 14,102 votes, and this is 33.3% of the vote. And then trailing behind both, Dushyant Gasse has 2,986 votes, and this is 7% of the vote. And Ted Yoho has already taken the Republican nomination. He is the incumbent, and he has 45,266 votes, and this is 75.8% of the vote. And behind him is Judson Sapp with 14,426 votes and 24.2% of the votes, and this is with 87% reporting. And over in House District 4, looks like it has already been called on both sides because they both were unopposed. Guess Selmont on the Democratic side and John Rutherford on the Republican side. And then over in U.S. House District 5, the Democratic race is between Al Lawson, the current incumbent, and Alvin Brown. It looks like Al Lawson has 48,072 votes, and this is 59% of the vote, and Alvin Brown has 33,357 votes, and this is 41% of the vote. And then the Republican candidate, Virginia Fuller, is uncontested. So she is the Republican nominee for U.S. House District 5. And over in U.S. House District 6. So Nancy Soderberg already has the Democratic nomination. She has 31,774 votes, and this is 55.6% of the vote. Behind her is John Upchurch with 12,919 votes, and this is 22.6% of the vote. And Stephen Savinji has 12,486 votes, and this is 21.8% of the vote. Now, over on the Republican side, Michael Waltz is at the top with 32,434 votes. He has 42.5% of the vote. Behind him is John Ward with 23,209 votes, and this is 30.4% of the vote. And then Fred Costello has 20,748 votes, and this is 27.2% of the vote, and this is with 97% reporting. So expecting that Republican candidate, Republican nominee to be named any minute. And then for U.S. House District 7, Stephanie Murphy is at the top on the Democratic side and has already been named the Democratic nominee with 48,701 votes, 751 votes. This is 86.2% reporting, and it is all precincts reporting, 100% reporting, all 144 out of 144. So we're not expecting those numbers to change. Right behind her, well, way behind her, excuse me, is Chardo Richardson. He finished at 7,793 votes, and this is 13.8% of the vote. And over on the Republican side, it does say 100% reported, but surprisingly, that Republican nominee has not been named yet. Mike Miller is at the top with 30,493 votes, and he has 53.9% of the vote. And Scott Sturgill has 17,214 votes, and this is 30.4% of the vote. And Vania Francois has 8,899 votes, and this is 15.7% of the vote. Now, this is with 100% precincts reporting, so it is surprising that they have not chosen a Republican nominee yet. And remember, if there are any candidates at all that you want me to name, please make sure that you want me to check on those results for. I will be glad to do that. So over in House District 8, both candidates Both candidates ran unopposed. So they have already been named as the nominees. On the Democratic side, Sanjay Patel, and on the Republican side, Bill Posey, who is the uncontested incumbent. And in U.S. House District 9, on the Democratic side, Darren Soto has already been named. He is the incumbent with 35,483 votes and 66.2% of the vote. And behind him is Alan Grayson, who has 18,079 votes and 33.8% of the vote. And then on the Republican side, Wayne Libnitsky ran unopposed, so he took that Republican nomination. So over in U.S. House District 10, Val Demings has already taken the Democratic nomination, ran against Wade Darius. Val Demings is the incumbent, and he finished off with 72,788 votes, and this is 75% of the vote. And Wade Darius had 24,309 votes and 25% of the vote. Looks like no Republicans ran for the U.S. House District 10 seat. Now for the District 11 seat, on the Democratic side, Dana Cottrell ran unopposed. And on the Republican side, Daniel Webster, the incumbent, also ran unopposed. So both of them took those nominations. Over in U.S. House District 12, Chris Hunter has already taken the Democratic nomination with 31,400 votes and 65.3% of the vote. This is 99% reporting with 177 out of 178 precincts reporting. Now behind him is Stephen Perenick, who has 9,187 votes, and this is 19.1% of the vote. And then trailing at the end, Robert Tager has 7,504 votes, and this is 15.6% of the vote. And Gus Bilirakis was uncontested for that Republican seat. And just taking a second to adjust some graphics real quick, so stay tuned. I know you guys really liked that star background, and I want to put it on this screen too. Because I will be here on this screen the majority of the night so that you all can see the numbers. Okay, there we go. It's a little bit more fun now. So moving on to U.S. House District 13. So Charlie Crist took the Democratic nomination. He ran uncontested and is the incumbent. And over on the Republican side, George Buck took that nomination with 29,889 votes. And this is 56% of the vote. And this is with 100% reporting. And also Brad Sostek was right behind George Buck with 23,497 votes and 44% of the vote. And then over in U.S. House District 14, Kathy Castor, the uncontested opponent, has already taken that Democratic nomination, and it looks like no Republicans ran for that seat. Now, still waiting on results for U.S. House District 15. It is at 97% reporting right now on both sides. However, on the Democratic side, in the lead is Kristen Carlson with 23,703 votes and 53.5% of the vote. Right behind Kristen is Andrew Learned, who has 13,956 votes and 31.5% of the vote. And at the end, Ray Pina has 6,663 votes with 15% of the vote. Over on the Republican side, for that District 15 seat, Ross Spano is in the lead with 25,982 votes and 43.7% of the vote. And Neil Cumby is right behind him with 20,230 votes and 34.1% of the vote. And then Sean Harper has 5,940 votes. This is 10% of the vote. Like I said, this is with 97% reporting. And then behind Sean is Danny Kushmer, who has 3,964 votes. And this is 6.7% of the votes. And at the end, Ed Shoemaker has 3,296 votes, and this is 5.5% of the vote. Wanted to welcome over here on the YouTube chat, we have a new member, Virginia Lininger. Welcome, Virginia. Hope you are doing well. Thank you so much for becoming a member tonight. So in U.S. House District 16, on the Democratic side, David Shapiro has already taken that nomination with 34,221 votes, and this is 54.8% of the vote. And Jan Schneider was behind him with 28,188 votes, and this is 45.2% of the vote. This is with 98% reporting, 182 of 186 precincts. And then on the Republican side, Vern Buchanan took that nomination as he is the uncontested incumbent. And in U.S. House District 17, April Freeman is in the lead on the Democratic side with 31,361 votes and 77.1% of the vote. Behind her is Bill Pollard with 9,331 votes and 22.9% of the vote. This is with 80% reporting. On the Republican side, Greg Steube already has that Republican nomination, taking it with 45,155 votes, and this is 62% of the vote. Behind him is Bill Akins, who has 14,775 votes with 19.3% of the vote. And then Julio Gonzalez has 13,556 votes with 18.6% of the vote. And wow, April Freeman just took that Democratic nomination. I know you guys just saw it light up blue. And wanted to shout out, we just got a couple donations. Thank you so much, Larry Stokes. Really appreciate you for the $5 donation, and Tim Clark for your $30 donation. He said, keep up the great work, RSBN. Thank you so much, Tim. Appreciate you. That will definitely help us get to our rally, which is actually Thursday. We're leaving tomorrow. We are driving to Evansville, Indiana for that. And I'll tell you guys a little bit more about that soon. But first, want to keep going through these results. So for U.S. House District 18, for that seat, Lauren Baer has already taken the Democratic nomination with 30,817 votes. And this is with 60.4% of the vote. Behind her is Pam Keith, who has 20,210 votes and 39.6% of the vote. And over on the Republican side, Brian Mast already has that Republican nomination. He is the incumbent with 50,961 votes, and this is 78.1% of the vote. Behind him is Mark Freeman with 7,204 votes. This is 11% of the vote. This is with 74% reporting. And Chris Davis, I know you just asked over on YouTube, we are still talking about Florida before we move on to Oklahoma. So trailing at the end was Dave Cummings, who has 7,120 votes and 10.9% of the vote. And for House District 19, David Holden already has that Democratic nomination. He has 22,527 votes and 68.2% of the vote. Behind him is Todd Truax, who has 10,488 votes and 31.8% of the votes. Now, over on the Republican side, Francis Rooney took that nomination as he is the uncontested incumbent. Now, looking at U.S. House District 20, there were actually no Republican candidates here, but a couple Democratic candidates. You can see Elise Hastings is in the lead with 30,371 votes with 75.5% of the vote. And behind her is Sheila Chairphilius McCormick, who has 9,831 votes and 24.5% of the vote. And for House District 21, again, no Republicans running, but Louis Frankel was the uncontested incumbent that took that Democratic nomination. In U.S. House District 22, still waiting for some results. Ted Deutsch is in the lead with 34,330 votes on the Democratic side and 88.7% of the vote. Now, Jeff Vandal is behind him with only 4,386 votes and 11.3% of the vote. Then we have, over on the Republican side, Nicholas Kimaz with 7,839 votes and 38.4% of the vote. And J.V. Menjares behind him with 7,412 votes, 36.3% of the vote. And Edison Walters has 5,183 votes. This is 25.4% of the vote. And this is just with only 14% reporting, 38 out of 271 precincts. So over in U.S. House District 23, Debbie Wasserman Schultz is going to be the Democratic nominee. She's the uncontested incumbent. And it looks like on the Republican side, Joe Kaufman is in the lead with 6,812 votes, 47.5% of the vote. Behind him is Carlos Reyes with 4,517 votes and 31.5% of the vote. And then behind them is Carla Spalding with 3,009 votes, 21% of the vote. And this is just with 7% reporting, only 17 of 232 precincts. So for U.S. House District 24, again, only Democratic candidates. Frederica Wilson has already taken that nomination with 58,698 votes and 83.9% of the vote. And this is with 76% reporting. And then Ricardo de la Fuente has 11,288 votes. And it looks like this is 16.1% of the vote. Now for U.S. House District 25, Again, 2 uncontested candidates. On the Democratic side, Mary Barzee Flores has already taken that nomination. And on the Republican side, the incumbent, also uncontested, Mario Diaz-Balart. So over in U.S. House District 26, Debbie Mucarsel-Power has already taken the Democratic nomination with 20,323 votes and 63.7% of the votes. And Demetrius Grimes has 11,578 votes with 36.3% of the vote. And wow, awesome. We just got a $100 donation from Marsha K. Thank you so much, Marsha. Really appreciate that. She said our friend on Patriot Soapbox, Indie Wars, will be at Rally Thursday. He got a press pass and we'll look you up. Great job, RSBN. Awesome. Thank you so much, Marsha. Really appreciate that and really excited to meet Indie Wars. And I'll tell you guys a little bit more about the rally soon. We're going to finish up these Florida numbers first. Again, thank you so much, Marsha. So over on the Republican side for U.S. House District 26, Carlos Curbelo has already taken that nomination with 28,688 votes and 84% of the vote. Behind him was Soraya Fass, who has 5,469 votes, and this is 16% of the vote. And this is with 89% reporting. So in U.S. House District 27, still no candidates named the nominees yet. We're at 93% reporting on both sides. And it looks like Donna Shalala is in the lead with 13,670 votes. And this is 31.9% of the vote. And then behind her is David Richardson, who has 11,774 votes. This is 27.5% of the vote. Behind him is Kristen Gonzalez with 7,544 votes and 17.6% of the vote. And then Matt Hagman has 7,265 votes, and this is 17% of the vote. And then at the very end, Michael Hepburn has 2,605 votes with 6.1% of the vote. Over on the Republican side, in the lead, we have Maria Salazar, who has 15,556 votes with 40.7% of the vote. And behind Maria is Bruno Barriero, who has 9,771 votes, 25.6% of the vote. And then we have Maria Piero with 3,056 votes, 8% of the vote. Stephen Marks, 2,640 votes, 6.9% of the vote. Angie Chirino, 2,609 votes with 6.8% of the vote. And Bettina Rodriguez Alguera, 1,638 votes, 4.3% of the vote. And Michael Ovizion, 1,444 votes, 3.8% of the vote. And Elizabeth Adati, 753 votes, just 2% of the vote. And Gina Sasa, 736 votes, 1.9% of the votes. And you can see for Attorney General, Sean Shaw has already taken the Democratic nomination with 945,000, just went up, before our eyes. I love it when that happens. 9,046,029 votes and 73.4% of the vote. And then Ryan Torrens has 343,018 votes and 26.6% of the vote. And over on the Republican side, Ashley Moody has taken the Republican nomination with 839,679 votes and 56.8% of the vote. And then Frank White is right behind her with 638,355 votes, 43.2% of the vote. And then for Agricultural Commissioner, in the lead is Nikki Fried. She has actually already taken that Democratic nomination with 756,115 votes and 58.3% of the vote. Behind her is Roy Walker with 334,627 votes and 25.8% of the votes. And then at the end is Jeffrey Porter with 207,274 votes and 16% of the votes. And then on the Republican side, we have Matt Caldwell in the lead, Denise Grimsley, Baxter Troutman, Mike McAllister, and Matt Caldwell has 492,781 votes. This is 34.2% of the votes. And over here on YouTube, on the YouTube chat, we just received a $5 donation from B. Neal. Thank you so much, B. Neal, for that. Really appreciate you. And before we move on to Arizona, I wanted to take a second to tell you guys that may not be familiar with RSBN, that may just be tuning in for these election results, which is perfectly fine. We're so glad to have you. A little bit about who we are and what we do. So we are a conservative online news network, but we aim to be non-biased, telling you both sides of the story and allowing you to make an informed decision with the facts. So we do broadcasts like this, you know, primaries, special elections, breaking news, White House press briefings, whatever it is, we want to bring it to you guys if it's important, if we think it's going to be relevant to you and to your life. And also we get to travel to President Trump rallies all around the country. He is always on the move. As you know, he barely ever sleeps. So our next rally is actually this Thursday. We are leaving tomorrow early in the morning to get there. It's this Thursday in Evansville, Indiana, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really excited to go. As you can imagine, these rallies are very expensive, whether we're driving or flying. No matter how we're getting there, it's still expensive with plane tickets, gas, rental cars, food when we're there, and of course lodging. Now we do try to stay in Airbnbs so that it is a little bit cheaper. Sometimes we are in hotels though, if that's cheaper. Just look for the best option there. And so like you can imagine, it's very expensive and we're not able to go without your donations. Now through this broadcast, you guys have seen some people, you've heard me shout out donations. If you're not familiar with, you know, how I saw those, where those were given, they were actually given on YouTube, over on the YouTube chat in the super chat, and that is the $sign in the bottom left corner. You can donate there and your donation will come up with your name. You can leave a comment in a bright color. It's a really fun way to donate, and you know, of course, as long as your comment is appropriate, I'll share it with everyone. Now we do get to keep 70% of that over on YouTube, whereas on our website you can donate. We'll get to keep 90% of that through PayPal. So you'll see different options if you go on our website. I'm not gonna pull it up right now. I'm just gonna kind of give you a quick rundown, those 3 different options The first one that comes up is PayPal. You enter your debit or credit card information, or you can log in if you already have a PayPal account. And the next way is through Patreon, which is a really fun way to donate where you can actually be a monthly donor. You can become a patron. You know, maybe you feel a little more invested with RSBN. You really like what you're seeing. You want to see more of it and make sure we get to those rallies. You can choose your different option on Patreon to donate monthly, and that's Patreon with an E. If you're getting to it separately from our website, it is patreon.com/RSBN, and you'll get fun things in return as well, like hats, pens, pencils, stickers, you know, blankets, t-shirts, just different things to remember RSBN throughout the day. And then that last one is through our just sending to our PO box, and you can see some of our moderators. If you guys could comment that address for me, it looks like British Patriot already did. You can just write a check out to RSBN, and our address is 1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6, Box 344 in Auburn, Alabama, 36830. And if you are watching on YouTube, you can see some of our fantastic moderators. Guinevere just commented those different links. Thank you so much, Guinevere. I want to give a shout out to some moderators. They are very loyal. They're viewers, they're moderators, supporters, and friends, and they keep our chat room clean and provide you guys with the information that you need. So thank you so much. Wanted to shout out to Guinevere, Real Frank in Florida, RSBN moderator, and let's see who else is here. Jan, and some of our regular members are here as well. Another moderator, LJ. So some of our members, two-time loser, JC, James Wolf, History B, the Millers, B. Neal, so glad to have you guys. And going to move on and see what's up in Arizona. Looks like we do not have any numbers yet in Arizona. I'll show you. You can see they're blank. We're still waiting for numbers to come in, but we do have numbers in Oklahoma. So before we really get into it, I'm going to share with you the what to watch just so that we can really know what to expect. And this is from the New York Times too. And this quick little what to watch written by Liam Stack. So there will be primary runoff elections in 4 of Oklahoma's 5 congressional districts. Only the 3rd district in the state's northwestern corner produced decisive results in the June primary. There will also be a runoff in the Republican primary for lieutenant governor and attorney general. So for governor, this is the Republican primary runoff. So for governor, Kevin Stitt is in the lead with 65,211 votes, 55% of the vote. And behind him is Mike Cornett, who has 53,446 votes and 45% of the vote. And you can see Kevin Stitt, all the yellow, all the counties that he's already taken in Oklahoma. And I'm checking real quick. Just to make sure. So these two candidates on the right are not labeled. So I want to make sure I get the correct parties for you. So it looks like they're both in the Libertarian Party, Chris Powell and Rex Lawhorn. Chris Powell has 254 votes and 63.5% of the votes. And this is with 47% reporting. And Rex Lawhorn has 146 votes and 36.5% of the vote. And then some more runoffs for the U.S. House District 1 seat in Oklahoma. Tim Gilpin is in the lead on the Democratic side with 5,412 votes and 59.5% of the vote. Behind him is Amanda Douglas, who has 3,677 votes and 40.5% of the vote, and this is with 27% reporting. Now, on the Republican side, the Republican primary runoff for U.S. House District 1, Kevin Hern has 11,248 votes and 55% of the vote. Behind him is Tim Harris, who has 9,205 votes, 45% of the vote, and this is just with 27% reporting, 88 out of 326 precincts. Now, over in U.S. House District 2 for that seat, looks like no Republicans running for the Democratic primary runoff. Jason Nichols is in the lead with 13,350 votes and 56.5% of the vote. And Clay Padgett has 10,279 votes and 43.5% of the vote. And yes, over on Facebook, Russell Jordan said, is anybody actually winning that is supporting the president? Ron DeSantis was supported by President Trump and actually took the Republican gubernatorial or governor nomination in Florida. And I saw over on the YouTube chat, many of you were commenting 1, and I was wondering why, but it looks like Vader Mastodon said press 1 if you're going to be watching the rally on RSBN Thursday. Thank you so much, Vader, for that. Love to see that support and anticipation. I've never been to Indiana before, so I'm really excited to go. Now for U.S. House District 4, again, no Republican candidates, but the Democratic primary runoff is between Mary Brannon and Fred Gibson. Mary Brannon has 7,620 votes with 53.3% of the vote, and Fred Gibson has 6,664 votes with 46.7% of the vote. Now over in U.S. House District 5, Kendra Horn is in the lead with 8,219 votes and 74.3% of the vote. And then Tom Guild has 2,837 votes with 25.7% of the vote. And this is with 31% reporting. Now for Lieutenant Governor, you can see Oklahoma is mostly yellow for Matt Pinnell, who has 77,994 votes, or 58.5% of the vote. and Dana Murphy behind him with 55,233 votes, 41.5% of the vote. And for Attorney General, that Republican primary runoff, Gentner Drummond is in the lead with 67,678 votes and 50.6% of the vote. Behind him is the incumbent Mike Hunter, who has 66,046 votes, and this is with 49.4% of the vote. And going to check make sure no numbers came in for Arizona yet. They are in a different time zone, at least than me. I don't know where you are, but I'm Central Time, so they're 2 hours behind me. So no numbers in yet for Arizona, but I will be checking some other sources, and I got some messages from you guys on Twitter, so I'm going to take a second to check those. And I got a message from Christian Lamar. He said, "Hi, Alyssa, Christian again. Reporting in from Phoenix. Here's the pulse of the people in Arizona. Tally from Street Support in North Phoenix. 17 of 21 reactions supported Ward with wave, thumbs up, or honk on the horn. Also just did a general Twitter search for keywords. Voted Ward, voted Kelly, voted me, Sally, voted Martha. In the last 24 hours, Ward 51 makes Sally 14. Thank you, Christian. I will keep looking into that. And it looks like President Trump has already tweeted about those winners in Florida. Thank you, British Patriot, for sharing those with me. I'm going to show those tweets to you guys real quick. President Trump said, "Such a fantastic win for Ron DeSantis and the people of the great state of Florida. Ron will be a fantastic governor on to November." And he also said, "Congratulations to Governor Rick Scott of Florida on his conclusive Republican primary win. He will be a great senator." Thank you, British Patriot, for sharing those with me. I appreciate you. And I'm going to keep searching for some Arizona primary results. Looks like no numbers in yet on Vox either. But I know Arizona did have some complications today. I'm going to go through that with you guys. So kind of just to get the feel of what's going on in Arizona, I have an article from the San Francisco Chronicle. So Arizona voters are nominating candidates to replace one of President Trump's fiercest critics in the Senate, a primary contest that comes amid increasing political change in a closely watched political battleground. And Tuesday's primary contest is for the seat being vacated by retiring Senator Jeff Flake, whose opposition to President Trump badly hurt his standing with the conservative Republican voters who dominate Arizona's GOP primaries. The death of Senator John McCain means both of the state's Senate seats will change hands by the year's end. The state's governor will name a replacement to fill McCain's seat. And the three Republicans competing Tuesday all embrace President Trump and distance themselves from McCain, including establishment favorite Representative Martha McSally. And a little bit about Florida. Gun control is weighing in on the minds of some voters casting ballots in Florida, where a Jacksonville shooting Sunday stoked the still painful memory of a February shooting in South Florida. Independent voter Franklin Roman of Miami says he wants Florida's next governor to press for some form of gun control. Roman says he's a gun owner and doesn't want anyone taking away his gun, but I think it's become a problem. Likewise, South Miami Democrat Louis Carvajal says restricting access to assault weapons in light of the deadly shooting in Parkland this year is an important issue. And today at 2:10 p.m., a contractor hired to set up voting machines in the Phoenix area failed to send enough technicians, leaving several polling places down during Arizona's primary election. And Maricopa County Recorder Adrian Fontes said today that his office in the state's most populous county learned of the issues Monday afternoon. He sent his staff to as many locations as possible to make fixes. So Fontes says he had expected up to 250 locations not being operational by Tuesday morning, but only 4 sites were down by 10 a.m., and it's unclear how many polling places were down when they were supposed to open. And Fontes says the contractor didn't set up the machines on time. More than 100 calls from voters reported problems today, and it comes more than 2 years after Phoenix area voters endured hours-long lines after the county cut polling locations. So the passing away of 6-term Senator John McCain is shadowing the primary contest in Arizona to replace his seatmate, and the race to succeed Senator Jeff Flake lays bare the fissures in a Republican Party dramatically remade by President Donald Trump. The 3 Republicans running for Flake's seat have embraced President Trump and distanced themselves from McCain. A sign of how far the late senator's status had fallen with conservatives who dominate Arizona's GOP primaries. And the outcome of Tuesday's primary will be closely watched by Arizona Governor Doug Ducey, who must name a replacement to fill McCain's seat for the next 2 years. McCain passed away Saturday after a year-long battle with brain cancer. And I'm checking right now, just doing some quick research, seeing when polls close in Arizona. And like I said, if you guys have any specific candidates that you want me to look into a little bit more, please send them to me on Twitter. I will. Yes, Mark McKinley said 40 minutes. Polls should be closing in 40 minutes in Arizona. So stay tuned. And Elmer Wright just donated $14.88. Thank you so much, Elmer, for that. Really appreciate you. So I'm going to throw out my Twitter handle, and that's at Alyssa RSBN. If you guys have any candidates you want me to really look into and research, please send their names my way on Twitter, or you can comment them here on YouTube. And I am watching Facebook as well. Okay, let's see. Over on Facebook, Digna Balkunis asked about Florida Congressional District 23 against Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Who is ahead? I'm going to check on that for you, Digna. So District 23, okay, so right now, as you know, Debbie Wasserman Schultz is the uncontested incumbent, and on the Republican side, against her in the lead is Joe Kaufman with 9,415 votes and 45.3% of the vote, and this is with 74% reporting, 171 of 232 precincts. And then behind Joe Kaufman is Carlos Reyes, who has 6,849 votes and 33% of the vote. And then Carla Spalding has 4,509 votes, and this is 21.7% of the votes. So I will be keeping a special eye on that for you, Digna, throughout the night. If you are hopefully still here on Facebook, and I will like your comment so you know that I saw it. Hopefully you got that answer. And John Mole said check Trump tweets. So going to see if there's anything new real quick. Okay, he has 2 new tweets. They don't have anything to do with the election, but I'll still share them with you guys since you asked. We saw these 2 earlier congratulating Ron DeSantis and Governor Rick Scott in Florida, who will move on to try to be a senator. The 2 new tweets that I have not reported on yet. He said, report just got out. China hacked Hillary Clinton's private email server. Are they sure it wasn't Russia? Just kidding. What are the odds that the FBI and the DOJ are right on top of this? Actually, a very big story, much classified information. And he said, add the 2026 World Cup to our long list of accomplishments. He did meet with the president of FIFA today, and we would have streamed that for you guys, but again, did not have access, which is very frustrating. but it was pretty quick. And Marcia Kay said China did not hack Hillary's emails. She gave them away through her server crowdsource. Okay, and since we haven't in a while, I want to check those Florida results just to make sure there's not anything new. Looks like there is for governor. Andrew Gillum took the Democratic nomination with 495,963 votes and 34% of the vote. So he is on the Democratic side, and he will be facing Ron DeSantis for governor. Now, behind him is Gwen Graham, and we saw earlier they were really close, just switching back and forth. So Gwen Graham has 458,075 votes and 31.4% of the vote. Behind Gwen Graham is Philip Levine, who has 296,000 votes, 296,777 votes, 20.4% of the vote. And behind him is Jeff Green with 147,894 votes and 10.1% of the vote. And behind him is Chris King, who has 36,578 votes with 2.5% of the vote. And right behind Chris King is John Weatherby, who has 14,070 votes. This is just 1% of the vote. And trailing at the end, Lundy Lundmark with 8,444 votes. This is 0.6% of the vote. And you can see on the map here, I'm going to pull it down a little bit. All the purple that Gilliam took, these definitely must be some larger counties because all the blue is Graham. So the counties that Gillum took: Broward, Miami-Dade, Orange, Hillsborough, Duval, Leon, Alachua, St. Lucie, Escambia, Gadsden, Clay, Okaloosa, Santa Rosa, Jefferson, Madison, Hendry, Hamilton, and real quick, the counties that Graham took: Palm Beach, Pinellas, Brevard, Volusia, Polk, Sarasota, Seminole, Pasco, Manatee, Marion, Osceola, Lake, St. John's, Hernando, Martin, Citrus, Indian River, Sumter, Flagler, Bay, Monroe, Highlands, Putnam, Jackson, Columbia, Nassau, Wauchula, Levy, Sewanee, Walton, Franklin, Taylor, Bradford, Okeechobee, Liberty, Washington, Baker, Calhoun, Gulf, Hardy, Holmes, Dixie, Gilchrist, and Lafayette. And as you know, President Trump endorsed Ron DeSantis, who took the Republican nomination at 892,558 votes. And this is 56.4% of the vote. Behind him, Adam Putnam with 579,389 votes, 36.6% of the vote. Behind Putnam is Bob White with just 31,973 votes. This is 2% of the vote. And then Timothy Devine has 20,918 votes, 1.3% of the vote. And Bob Langford has 19,450 votes, 1.2% of the vote. And Bruce Nathan has 14,092 votes, 0.9% of the vote. And Don Baldoff has 12,832 votes, 0.8% of the vote. And John Mercadanti has 11,311 votes. This is just 0.7% of the vote. And you can see how Florida is mostly red for DeSantis. And I'll go through the different counties with you guys that he won. So those different counties: Miami-Dade, Pinellas, Duval, Lee, Brevard, Orange, Broward, Palm Beach, Volusia, Sarasota, Pasco, Marion, Collier, Manatee, Seminole, Lake, Escambia, St. John's, Clay, Okaloosa, Sumter, Santa Rosa, Martin, Citrus, St. Lucie, Hernando, Bay, Indian River, Charlotte, Osceola, Nassau, Alachua, Flagler, Walton, Putnam, Monroe, Baker, Gulf, Franklin. And it looks like over on YouTube, one of our members just joined, Jeanette, RN for Trump. Welcome, Jeanette. Hope you're doing good. And Zoom, I don't think I shouted you out earlier. Glad you're here too. And still no numbers yet in Arizona, but stay tuned. So we'll just kind of go through Florida again, what's going on. A few of the races were really close to completion, or at least, counting those votes, reporting. A lot of them were 97% reporting, so now expected to be 100. So Bill Nelson already has the Democratic nomination for U.S. Senate, and he will be facing Rick Scott, the Republican nominee, who has a total of 1,406,920 votes and 88.6% of the vote, way over Roque de la Fuente, who has 180,392 votes, 11.4% of the vote. And this is with 94% reporting. And you can see all yellow for Scott. They do not even have a color for Roque de la Fuente. It says he's red on here, but I am not seeing any red counties. So still waiting on a nominee for U.S. House District 1. On the Democratic side, Jennifer Zimmerman is in the lead with 22,361 votes, and this is 60.5% of the vote. And then Phil Eyre has 14,594 votes, and this is 39.5% 5% of the vote. Now, we already knew over on the Republican side, Matt Gaetz, the incumbent, has already taken that nomination with 64,881 votes and 64.8% of the vote. And behind him is Chris Joseph, who has 30,298 votes and 30.3% of the vote. And behind him is John Mills, who has 4,964 votes and 5% of the vote. Now, this is with 98% reporting, 196 of 199 precincts. So over in U.S. House District 2, move this down so you can see it. Still waiting on a Democratic candidate. Bob Ratcliffe is in the lead with 28,791 votes, and this is 50.6% of the vote. And Brandon Peters has 28,151 votes and 49.4% of the vote. And now Neil Dunn has already taken that Republican nomination. He is the uncontested incumbent. And over in U.S. House District 3, Yvonne Hayes Hinson has already taken that Democratic nomination with 31,071 votes, 59.5% of the vote. Behind her is Tom Wells with 17,330 votes, 33.2% of the vote. And behind him is Dushyant Gosai, who has 3,785 votes, which is 7.3% of the vote. Now, this is with 98% reporting, 218 of 223 pressings. And over on the Republican side, Ted Yoho has already taken that Republican nomination for District 3 with 54,409 votes and 76.2% of the vote. Behind him is Judson Sapp, who has 16,962 votes. And this is 23.8% of the vote. And for U.S. House District 4, Guess Selmont and John Rutherford both ran uncontested, so they've taken their party's nominations. You can see Guess Selmont on the Democratic side and John Rutherford on the Republican side. And then over in U.S. House District 5, Al Lawson has taken that Democratic nomination with 53,310 votes and 60.4% of the vote. And then Alvin Brown was behind him with 35,016 votes and 39.6% of the vote. And on the Republican side, Virginia Sinclair has taken that nomination. She ran uncontested. So in U.S. House District 6, Nancy Soderberg has taken the Democratic nomination with 32,059 votes and 55.6% of the vote. Behind her is John Upchurch with 13,060 votes and 22.6% of the vote. And behind him is Stephen Savinji with 12,592 votes, and this is with 21.8% of the vote. Now, over on the Republican side, Michael Waltz has actually already taken that Republican nomination with 32,816 votes and 42.4% of the vote. And behind him is John Ward with 23,528 votes, and this is 30.4% of the vote. And Fred Costello with 21,014 votes, and this is 27.2% of the vote. So U.S. House District 7, on the Democratic side, Stephanie Murphy has actually already taken that nomination with 48,751 votes and 86.2% of the vote. Now behind her, way behind her, is Chardo Richardson, who has 7,793 votes and 13.8% of the vote. Now over on the Republican side, Mike Miller has actually already taken that Republican nomination with 30,493 votes and 53.9% of the vote. Now behind him was Scott Sturgill, who has 17,214 votes. This is 30.4% of the vote. Behind him is Vania Francois, who has 8,899 votes, and this is 15.7% of the vote. Now this is with 100% reporting, all 144 of 144 precincts. So over in U.S. House District 8, 2 uncontested candidates. On the Democratic side, Sanjay Patel has already taken that nomination. And on the Republican side, Bill Posey has already taken that nomination. And I wanted to shout out over on YouTube, we just got a $5 donation from Christine Bestien, who is one of our Gold Star moms. Thank you so much, Christine. And she said, I love RSBN. So good to see all of you here tonight, witnessing history together. Where we go one, we go all, as it has always been with the RSBN family. Thank you so much, Christine. Really appreciate your donation. And it was really heartwarming meeting you at one of the rallies. You almost had us crying, telling us your story, you know, just about how you lost your son and how RSBN gave you so much hope. You almost brought all of us to tears, and just thank you so much. It was such an honor to meet you, and hope to see you again at another rally. So back in Florida, in U.S. House District 9, Darren Soto has already taken the Democratic nomination with 36,449 votes and 66.4% of the vote. And he's way above Alan Grayson, who has 18,483 votes, which is 33.6% of the vote. And he will be going against Wayne Liebnitzky of the Republican Party, who ran uncontested. So then in U.S. House District 10, interestingly enough, and we'll see this in some other areas too, but not seeing any Republican candidates. But on the Democratic side, Val Demings has already taken that nomination. He is the incumbent with 72,778 votes and 75% of the votes. This is with 100% reporting, all 144 of 144 precincts. Behind him is Wade Darius, who finished with 24,309 votes, which is just 25% of all total votes. Again, 2 uncontested candidates for U.S. House District 11. On the Democratic side, Dana Cottrell took the nomination. And on the Republican side, Daniel Webster took the nomination. So U.S. House District 12, Chris Hunter took that Democratic nomination with 31,400 votes and 65.3% of the vote. Behind him is Stephen Perenick, who didn't take anything. He has 9,187 votes, and this is 19.1% of the vote. And I'm seeing over here on YouTube, Supervillain just commented, please go out and vote, guys. Yes, please do. It is so, so important, just a way for your voice to be heard so that you can elect candidates that will be able to carry out your values and create a better America. Thank you so much for that great reminder, supervillain. So also for U.S. House District 12, on the Republican side, Gus Bilirakis ran uncontested, so he has taken that nomination. In U.S. House District 13, Charlie Crist ran uncontested on the Democratic side, and he will be facing George Buck on the Republican side, who took the nomination with 29,889 votes. And he's above Brad Sostek, who has 23,497 votes and 44% of the vote. Now also in U.S. House District 14, Kathy Castor ran uncontested, and it looks like there are no Republican candidates either. So that seat may be hers. And over in U.S. House District 15, Kristen Carlson is in the lead and has taken the Democratic nomination with 23,880 votes. And this is 53.5% of all votes. And she's above Andrew Learned, who has 14,070 votes, 31.5% of the vote, and Ray Pina, who has 6,720 votes and 15% of the votes. Now, over on the Republican side, this is District 15. We are still waiting on a Republican nominee to be named. It looks like it's going to be Ross Spano, who is taking the lead, and we are almost there, 98% reporting. So this is 190 of 194 precincts. So Ross Spano has 26,312 votes. He has 43.9% of the vote, and he's above Neil Cumby, who has 20,394 votes and 34% of the vote. And he's also above Sean Harper, who has 5,971 votes, or 10% of the vote. And he's also above Danny Kushmer, who has 4,001 votes and 6.7% of the vote. And Ed Shoemaker is at the end with 3,325 votes, and this is 5.5% of the total votes. Now moving on to District 16, on the Democratic side, David Shapiro has already taken the nomination with 34,275 votes, and this is 54.8% of the vote. Following behind him is Jan Schneider, who has 28,243 votes, and this is 45.2% of the vote. Now, running against David Shapiro will be Vern Buchanan of the Republican Party, who ran as the uncontested incumbent. And for U.S. House District 17, April Freeman has already taken that Democratic nomination with 33,263 votes, and this is 77% of the total vote. And April is above Bill Pollard, who has 9,932 votes, and this is 23% of the vote. Now, April Freeman will be facing Greg Stubbe, who has 48,771 votes, and he's already been called as the Republican nominee. And this is 62.4% of all the votes, and those that fell behind him included Bill Akins and Julio Gonzalez. Bill Akins has 15,083 votes, and this is 19.3% of the vote, and Julio Gonzalez has 14,389 votes and 18.3% of the vote. And for the one that asked B.H. Harris, I am sharing Florida's statistics with you. And Florida is almost completely done, just waiting on a couple seats, a couple nominations to be decided. So in U.S. House District 18, Lauren Bayer, not sure how to pronounce that, has already taken the Democratic nomination with 30,930 votes and 60.4% of the vote. And then Pam Keith, falling behind her with 20,308 votes and 39.6% of the vote. Now, on the Republican side, Brian Mast has already taken that Republican nomination. He is the incumbent, the current representative for U.S. House District 18, and he has 51,145 votes, which is 78.1% of all total votes, and he is way ahead of Mark Freeman, who has 7,239 votes and 11% of all total votes. Right now we're at 75% reporting, and this means there are 260 of 374 precincts. So Dave Cummings behind both of them with 7,142 votes, and this is 10.9% of all votes. So for U.S. House District 19 on the Democratic side, David Holden has taken the Democratic nomination with 24,390 votes, and this is 67.9% of all total votes. He is above Todd Truax, who has 11,513 votes, 32.1% of the votes, and he will be facing Francis Rooney of the Republican Party, who ran as the uncontested incumbent. So over in U.S. House District 20, Elise Hastings has already taken the Democratic nomination. It looks like no Republicans will be running against her, with 47,943 votes, and this is 73.6% of all votes. She was way above Sheila Chair-Phillips McCormick, who has 17,189 votes and 26.4% of the vote. Now over in U.S. House District 21, Louis Frankel taking that Democratic nomination for the Democratic Party as he ran as the uncontested incumbent. Over in U.S. House District 22, Ted Douche will be the Democratic nominee with 51,260 votes and 86.5% of the vote. And behind him is Jeff Fandel with 7,979 votes and 13.5% of all the votes. Now, we're still waiting on a Republican nominee to face Ted Douche. Right now, in the lead is Nicholas Kamaz with 13,569 votes, 41% of the vote. And Javi Manjares has 11,236 votes with 33.9% of the vote. And Edison Walters has 8,325 votes with 25.1% of all the votes. Now looking down, this was one that you actually asked about Debbie Wasserman Schultz will be the uncontested Democratic nominee for U.S. House District 23. I know you asked about this over here on YouTube. Digna, hopefully you are still watching. And still waiting to see who will run against her. Joe Kaufman is in the lead with 11,146 votes, and this is 44.7% of all the votes. And behind him is Carlos Reyes with 8,412 votes. This is 33.8% of all the votes. And then at the end, Carla Spalding has 5,365 votes, and this is 21.5% of all the votes. So in U.S. House District 24, Frederica Wilson has 65,120 votes, and she will be the Democratic nominee for this seat. But I wanted to switch it over. Some of you were asking if President Trump endorsed McSally. So I'm going to check on that for you. So still looking to see if he actually endorsed her. But first, I'm going to share with you guys some information about her relationship with President Trump. And this is from Tucson.com, from the Arizona Daily Star. So Tucson Congresswoman Marka McSally shed new light on her working relationship with President Donald Trump on a Phoenix morning news program on Friday. And two-term Republican often shied away from commenting on President Trump during the 2016 campaign, also often telling reporters that she was laser focused on her own re-election campaign. However, in the last year, McSally has increasingly highlighted her close ties to the president, drawing criticism that the retired Air Force colonel has changed course to better appeal to Trump supporters as she runs to replace Jeff Flake in the Senate. So in an interview with Good Morning Arizona on Friday, she said she had a policy of not endorsing anyone. She said, "I just have a policy. I've never endorsed anyone for anything, not a dog catcher or a mayor or president. I was doing my job and running my race in 2016. But since President Trump took office, she said, since President Trump has taken office, I am working with him. I am invited over to the White House all the time. I have a reputation of being constructive and speaking truth to power." And she fired off a list of items she's already worked closely on with the president, including cutting taxes, fixing health care, securing the border, and rolling back regulations. And the Tucson Republican is now part of a 3-person primary for the Republican nomination, facing off against Sheriff Joe Arpaio, who was personally pardoned by Trump last year, and former state senator Kelly Ward, who has been endorsed by some of Trump's former advisors, including Steve Bannon and Sebastian Gorka. And checking my Twitter messages real quick. Great answer from Christian Lamar, who, like I said, is in Phoenix. Thank you so much, Christian. He said, answer to your question, Trump endorsement of McSally. No, he never endorsed a candidate in the U.S. Senate and Arizona race. Reason you see people giving McSally a false endorsement is to trick and deceive the voters into voting for McSally. McSally will not say whether she voted for Trump either. There's a video of it, direct question, and she wouldn't answer it. And Dr. Kelly Ward has attended multiple Trump rallies and openly expressed that she did vote for President Trump in 2016. Thank you, Christian. That's super helpful. Really appreciate that, and glad we can take a look at some of those candidates before those numbers come in. Going to check again. It looks like nothing yet. But I am going to let you guys take another look at Florida real quick. So you can see where Andrew Gillum has taken different counties in Florida and Ron DeSantis. And checking your YouTube comments and your Twitter messages. Again, thank you so much for that, Christian. Super helpful. And I want to know what candidates you guys want me to research a little more to tell you about while we await those Arizona numbers. But first, I am going to check over in Oklahoma again. See if there's anything new. So we already knew that Kevin Stitt would take, we already knew that he took the Republican nomination for governor. You can see all the yellow with 145,981 votes, and this is 54.5% of all the votes. And behind him is Mike Cornett with 121,733 votes and 45.5% of the vote. And you can see just some of those red counties in the middle of Oklahoma that Cornett won. And then Chris Powell and Rex Lawhorn, who are actually both libertarians, still waiting to see which of them will take the nomination. It's at 93% reporting right now, 1,823 of 1,951 pressings. So Chris Powell has 492 votes and Rex Lawhorn has 343. So it looks like a few nominees were named since we last checked, and you have 26 precincts. And then for the Republican primary runoff, still waiting to see who that nominee will be. It's between Kevin Hern and Tim Harris. Now, Kevin Hern has 30,709 votes and 55.6% of the vote. And Tim Harris has 24,495 votes, which is 44.4% of the votes that have come in so far. This is with 78% reporting, 254 of 326 precincts. So 100% reporting over in U.S. House District 2, Jason Nichols taking the nomination for the Democratic Party with 19,548 votes, which is 56.8% of all the votes that have come in, which is 100%. All votes have come in for U.S. House District 2. And U.S. House District 4, another Democratic primary runoff. Mary Brannon has taken that nomination with 15,015 votes, 57.4% of the votes, over Fred Gibson, who has 11,129 votes, which is 42.6% of the votes. And in U.S. House District 5, Kendra Horn has taken the nomination with 19,513 votes and 75.4% of the vote. And this is over Tom Guild, who has 6,380 votes, which is 24.6% of the votes. Now for Lieutenant Governor, you can actually see all of the yellow for Matt Pinnell, who has taken the Republican nomination with 94% of the votes in. He has 153,986 votes and 58.2% of the votes. Now he is above Dana Murphy, who has 110,748 votes, 41.8% of the votes. And we're going to go through, you can see it is most of the state, but going to go through, tell you guys what counties Pinnell has won in Oklahoma, which is most of them: Oklahoma, Tulsa, Cleveland, Canadian, Rogers, Creek, Garfield, Wagoner, Washington, Comanche, Payne, Logan, Pottawatomie, Grady, Kay, Osage, Stevens, Muskogee, McLean, Lincoln, Mays, Delaware, Kingfisher, Cherokee, Pontotoc, Carter, Okmulgee, Pittsburgh, Garvin, Jackson, LaFleur, Noble, Texas, Major, Caddo, Beckham, Pawnee, Seminole, Bryan, Ottawa, Newada, Sequoia, McIntosh, Adair, Alfalfa, Wichita, Craig, Grant, Dewey, McCurtain, Murray, Hughes, Tillman, Okfuskee, Marshall, Kiowa, Atoka, Haxel, Latimer, Johnson, Cotton, Coctaw, Roger Mills, Cimarron, Love, Pushmataha, Jefferson, Cole, Greer, and Harmon. Now, still waiting to see who the Attorney General nominee will be. The Republican primary runoff, it is between Mike Hunter and Gentner Drummond. Now, Hunter is the incumbent, and he has 133,114 votes, and this is with 50.1% reporting. And Gentner Drummond has 132,778 votes, and this is with 49.9% reporting. Checking Arizona again, still no numbers in, but going to check other sources as well. So nothing yet, but I want to go through some information about the candidates with you guys and see what we can expect. So this is kind of a little explanation, and this is from Vox.com. So in Arizona, there's a contentious Senate primary for Jeff Flake's open seat between three Republicans, Representative Martha McSally, Dr. Kelly Ward, and former Maricopa County Sheriff Joe Arpaio. And the Democrat frontrunner in that race, Representative Christine Sinema, is sitting back and letting the Republicans duke it out. There's also a competitive Democratic primary for governor in the state, as well as two closely watched House races. So in Arizona, Democrats want to replace incumbent Governor Doug Ducey. And the Republicans are incumbent Governor Doug Ducey and former Arizona Secretary of State Ken Bennett. The Democrats are former Arizona Department of Education official and Professor David Garcia, State Senator Steve Farley, and Kelly Fryer, the CEO of the YWCA South Arizona. So it is looking that Ducey will win the Republican primary despite a challenge On the Democratic side, Garcia has maintained a steady lead in the polls with Farley in second place. Garcia is running as a progressive. He supports Medicare for all and campaign finance reform, and he recently pledged almost $7,000 worth of campaign contributions he got from individuals identified as lobbyists after promising to take no lobbyist money. And Ducey's approval rating has fallen in recent weeks, and he's facing a tough dynamic with angry and fired up teachers. Arizona was one of the states with teacher protests, with tens of thousands of teachers marching on the state capitol demanding better pay. With Garcia's education background and promises to expand access to early childhood education programs, this could be a boost for him. And then the Arizona Senate primary elections being called a wild three-way Republican primary for Jeff Flake's open Senate seat. So the Republicans are Representative Martha McSally, who you can see right here, the first woman combat pilot in American history, Dr. Kelly Ward, and former Sheriff Joe Arpaio. And Ward and Arpaio are both conservative hardliners. So the Democratic frontrunner is Representative Kristen Sinema. She's a former Green Party activist who has fashioned herself as a more moderate Democrat who is the House Blue Dog who's in the House Blue Dog Coalition, and Attorney Deidre Abowd is also running. So Arizona is a key pickup opportunity for Democrats after Republican Senator Jeff Flake announced he wouldn't seek re-election. Democratic candidate Sinema is polling far ahead of little-known challenger Abowd. Meanwhile, there's a competitive primary on the Republican side. While McSally is considered the front runner, there's also a bitter competition playing out between Ward and Arpaio, two hardline, they're called Trumpy Republicans. Meanwhile, McSally is facing questions about her loyalty to Trump. She didn't endorse him in 2016, but now calls him a friend, and President Trump has not endorsed this race. So going into November, this state is definitely in play for Democrats. A hypothetical polling matchup between McSally and Sinema in June and July shows Sinema ahead by 7 points, according to the Real Clear Politics average. But a lot could happen between now and November. Expect this to be a very expensive race. And for the 1st Congressional District, Democrat Tom O'Halloran tries to hang on in Arizona Trump country. The Republicans are retired Air Force Lieutenant Colonel Wendy Rogers, State Senator Steve Smith, and entrepreneur Tiffany Shedd. So the Democrat is incumbent Representative Tom O'Halloran, elected in 2016. And he used to be a Republican when he was in the Arizona State Legislature, but he left the party in 2014 and ran as a Democrat 2 years later. So the 1st Congressional District, and for those of you that missed it, this is a picture of O'Halloran running for the 1st District. So the 1st Congressional District is prime southwestern Trump country. It voted for President Trump over Hillary Clinton in 2016, while also electing O'Halloran as a Democratic congressman. Now, given his former position as a Republican and his moderate stance in Congress, he's the kind of Democrat that can't compete in the district. Now, on the Republican side, there's a Trump loyalty contest going on. Smith is running on his experience as an elected official, but Rogers is garnering a fair amount of name recognition and is running on her loyalty to the president. Now, the nonpartisan Cook Political Report rates this district R+2, but so far has placed it in the likely Democratic category. So for the second congressional district, 2 Democrats are fighting for Martha McSally's open seat. And the Republicans are CEO of the Tucson Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, Marquez Peterson, veteran Brandon Martin, former Douglas City Councilor Danny Morales, and former Peace Corps member Casey Welch. And the Democrats are Dr. and former Arizona State Representative Matt Hines and former Representative Ann Kirkpatrick. They are the front runners. And Kirkpatrick actually has the backing of the DCCC, while Hines was the Democratic nominee for the district in 2016. So this is an open seat, and now that Representative Martha McSally is running for Senate. So right here you can see Ann Kirkpatrick on the right talking with Democratic opponent Dr. Matt Hines at a campaign office opening in Tucson back in 2016. So the second congressional district is very evenly divided between Democratic and Republican voters, making it a key pickup opportunity for Democrats, and Cook rates the district R+1, but puts it in the lean Democratic column. So there's a bitter fight brewing on the Democratic side. Lately, Hines and Kirkpatrick are pretty close in the polls and have been launching negative ads against each other. Hines recently compared Kirkpatrick's quest to return to Washington to meth addiction. And on the Republican side, Peterson is ahead in the fundraising game, but the Republican primary has not gotten quite as heated. And going to check New York Times on those Arizona numbers and see if they are in yet. Not yet. We're still waiting. But we're going to go back over to Oklahoma real quick. Now, remember, if you guys want me to look up a specific candidate and share information about them with you, please tweet me on Twitter at Alyssa RSBN. I will put that up for a second so that you're able to see it. And going to check my Twitter messages. I think I have a couple new ones from you guys. Thank you. And over on Twitter, Scott Michaelis weighing in. He said, McSally is a liar, plain and simple. Trump never endorsed anyone for AZ senator because he is friends with both Joe Arpaio and Kelly Ward. Thank you for sharing that, Scott. So some of you are also asking about how McCain's seat will be filled. So I have an article from time.com that I'm going to share with you that kind of really goes into detail about that process. Okay, so this is from time.com. So the death of Senator John McCain on Saturday means that Arizona now has 2 open Senate seats. And it kind of goes into a little bit about his life. So then moving on, what happens to his seat? So Arizona Governor Doug Ducey, a Republican, will appoint a temporary replacement to represent the state in the U.S. Senate until the next general election. Arizona is one of 36 states where Senate vacancies are handled this way. And under Arizona law, Ducey must appoint someone in the same political party as the vacating senator, which means McCain's seat must be filled by a Republican, and Ducey won't be making any announcements about McCain's replacement until after the late senator is laid to rest. And Michael Waller said, I interviewed him at the Charleston, West Virginia rally. Great to meet you. Great to meet you too, Michael. So at the same time, as you guys know, Arizona Senator Jeff Flake decided not to seek re-election. and his seat is already up for a contested election this year. And due to election deadlines, it is unlikely that there will also be an election for McCain's seat, which means Ducey's appointment could serve through 2020. So the deadline for candidates to qualify for primaries in Arizona was May 30th, and state law does not require that an election for a vacant Senate seat take place this year, according to Eric Spencer, Director of Election Services for Arizona Secretary of State. So I see your comment on YouTube, AJS. Is Sheriff Joe doing good tonight? Unfortunately, we do not have those numbers yet for Arizona, so stay tuned. So Ducey has said that he won't consider appointing politicians who lobbied for McCain's seat prematurely. And he said back in a December interview, to the politicians out there that have been openly lobbying for this position, they've basically disqualified themselves by showing their true character. And when asked in that interview whether he would consider appointing himself for the seat, Ducey suggested he would rather stay in his current role. He said, "I want to find somebody whose desire is to be on the United States Senate and can serve Arizona well. I'm going to continue to serve as governor as long as the voters will let me." And Ducey is seeking re-election, but faces a challenger in the Republican primary. His opponent, Ken Bennett, has tried to make the Senate appointment a reason for conservatives to balk on the governor. So Republican consultant Sean Noble says U.S. Representative David Schweikert, former Republican John Shadegg, and former Representative Matt Salmon are among possible contenders for the seat. And Republican strategists and donors have also discussed former Senator John Kill and McCain's wife Cindy as possible successors. So in the past, dozens of women have succeeded their deceased husbands in Congress, and some speculate that Cindy McCain could join their ranks. Now, if you're kind of wondering, how does the race for Senator Jeff Flake's seat impact McCain's replacement? So complicating the discussion about who Ducey might appoint to McCain's seat is the primary for Flake's seat on Tuesday. So at the moment, Arizona is watching two conservative candidates vie for Flake's Senate seat. Representative Martha McSally is the Washington-favored candidate, while former ER Dr. Kelly Ward is the darling of the hard-right corner of the party that hates McCain. So it is possible both women could wind up in the Senate if Ducey appoints the loser of the primary to fill McCain's seat. So some of the deeply conservative Republicans in the state, the same ones who forced the state GOP to censure McCain earlier in his career for daring to work on bipartisan immigration proposals, are reluctant to entertain certain suggestions that Cindy McCain could take the seat. And for these hard-right voters, McCain is an epithet, and senators passing the senators passing on Saturday changes none of that. In fact, Ward continued to hammer McCain on Saturday at campaign rallies, something that could make her appointment seem crass. And this was from Time. I know some of you were asking about that, and going to keep periodically checking on those Arizona numbers. Nothing in yet, but you can see it's all set up. The charts are ready, and so are we, so stay tuned. Okay, switching over, going to check my Twitter messages again just to make sure there are no candidates you guys really want me to look into. We will be taking another look at Oklahoma in a minute. So nothing has really changed in Oklahoma, but we will go over these results again for those who may have missed it. And real quick, the what to watch. So I love these because it's a quick blurb of what we're going to expect. So it says there will be primary runoff elections in 4 of Oklahoma's 5 congressional districts. Only the 3rd district in the state's northwestern corner produced decisive results in the June primary. There will also be a runoff in the Republican primary for lieutenant governor and attorney general. And that's definitely scary. Over on YouTube, JC said that he just experienced a quick hurricane, a quick earthquake. I'm sorry, not hurricane. Very scary. JC, praying for you. So back to Oklahoma. For governor, Kevin Stitt has already taken that Republican nomination with 164,567 votes, and this is 54.5% of the vote. Behind him, not too far behind, is Mike Cornett, who has 137,142 votes. And this is 45.5% of the vote. And now these candidates over here actually running, I believe it was independent. No, the Libertarian Party. So Chris Powell has 547 votes. And 59.1% of the vote. And Rex Lawhorn has 379 votes, 40.9% of the vote. And we just received a donation over on YouTube. Tim Clark, thank you so much for that. He said, thank you, Alyssa, love RSBN. Really appreciate you, Tim Clark. Thank you for your $30 donation. That will definitely help us get to our next rally, which is this Thursday in Evansville, Indiana. Thank you so much for that. Waking up super early for that. So I will probably be cutting off this stream a little earlier than normal. Usually I go 4 to 5 hours with primary election night streams, but having to wake up super early. I'm leaving here at 5, so 5:30, to go to Liz and Liz's house, and then we are driving all the way up to Indiana. So she's in Atlanta, so it's going to be really a crazy day. So I apologize that the show will get cut a little shorter tonight, but I'm going to try to wait it out to see those Arizona results if we can. Anyways, going back to Oklahoma. So for U.S. House District 1, and this is updated. I know we were waiting on these to fill in. So Tim Gilpin took the Democratic nomination with 16,928 votes and 59.4% of the vote. And then Amanda Douglas, she's behind him with 11,552 votes, 40.6% of the vote. And this is with 99% reporting. So on the Republican side, for the Republican primary runoff, as you can see, Kevin Hurd took that nomination with 40,180 votes and 54.9% of the vote. And then Tim Harris behind him with 32,967 votes and 45.1% of the vote. And one of you said to check Twitter, check my Twitter messages. So, Kevin asked about Trump's endorsements. So he did endorse Rick Scott for, I believe, Senate. Yes, for Senate. And he did get the Republican nomination over in Florida. And also in Florida, Ron DeSantis for governor. And he did get the Republican nomination. Now, I'm not sure if he endorsed anyone in Oklahoma. I'm going to check on that for you real quick. He did not endorse any candidates in Arizona. So I am not seeing any endorsements in Oklahoma right now. And that's definitely scary. An update from one of our moderators, one of our members, actually, JC. 2 earthquakes strike at Laverne, felt all over Southland. This is from ABC 7. 2 earthquakes of 4.4 magnitude and 3.4 magnitude struck a little more than 2 miles south of Laverne, according to the U.S. Geological Survey. Residents reported feeling the tremor as far as the San Fernando Valley and then into San Gabriel Valley in Orange County. There were no reports of any damage. Still definitely scary. Thank you for sharing that with us, JC. Glad you are okay. Okay, so nothing yet in Arizona. Sorry to show you the blank page again, but we're going to keep checking it. And I had a little bit more information for you about what happened today in Arizona, so I'm going to pull that up. So this is actually from CNN, I'm sorry, but it says Arizona polls to close on time after Election Day. So the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors has rejected what it termed as an unprecedented request by County Recorder Adrian Fontes to keep polls open an extra 2 hours today, Tuesday. So Fontes, the top elections official in Arizona's most populous county, said he would petition to extend voting hours in the primary election Tuesday after a contractor failed to set up voting machines across the county's more than 500 precincts, delaying voting at several dozen polling locations. And the Maricopa County Recorder, Adrian Fontes, told CNN, "We want to make sure every voter has access." So in response, Steve Chukri, the Maricopa County Supervisor, released a statement on Twitter saying, "Today we learned 62 polling places were not ready at the start of the day. Members of the board were not told of any concerns yesterday when the recorder first became aware of issues, nor were members notified prior to the polls opening this morning." And he also said, "Now the board is being asked to step in and take unprecedented action that may confuse voters, delay results, and have other unintended consequences. We encourage any voter who wants to cast their ballot to be in line at any of your designated polling places by 7 p.m. and their vote will be counted." So voters are casting ballots today in Arizona's primary election, including a closely watched contest to decide the Republican nominee in the state's U.S. Senate race. But voting initially hit a snag when a contractor hired to bring voting machines online in Maricopa County did not show up, according to the county recorder's office. And Fontes said, "This wasn't a problem of the machines. Our technology works well. The problem was the actual setup of the technology in the polling places." And officials decided to disclose the name of the contractor who they said they had used previously without issue. And Fontes said he first learned of the issue Monday afternoon, but decided not to publicize it so as not to risk suppressing voter turnout. Instead, county officials rushed to bring the machines online in time for polls to open Tuesday morning. He said the county did not prioritize certain precincts, but was pushing folks in whatever direction they were closest to. And Fontes said, "It was all hands on deck all morning long. We're really proud of our team for stepping up and stepping into the void that this contractor left." And at those polling locations where machines were not online this morning, several dozen, Fontes estimates, although the county does not have an exact count, voters were able to turn in early voting ballots, and poll workers were instructed to inform Election Day voters that they could cast their ballots at one of 40 voting centers across the country. But Fontes added, but as of noon local time, the county's voting machines were 100% online, but we have some major issues to make up for with voters. So the majority of voters were expected to cast their ballots early, Fontes said. However, because turnout has exceeded the country's projections thus far, we cannot really tell how many voters might have been affected by the issues. And Fontes said, a negative impact on one voter is too much. I really do feel terrible that we couldn't be there for every single voter. And this is another one from USA Today. A little bit more information. So after widespread voting problems in Maricopa County Tuesday morning, the Board of Supervisors will not extend polling hours despite requests by the county recorder and Secretary of State. The board is being asked to step in and take unprecedented action that may confuse voters, delay returns, and have other unintended consequences. And this is from Chairman Steve Chutry. And he said, we encourage any voter who wants to cast their ballot to be in line at any of your designated polling places by 7 p.m. and their vote will be counted. And Tuesday's primary elections in Arizona kicked off with multiple reports of closed polling locations in the valley, malfunctioning equipment and computers that weren't set up. And Arizona Secretary of State Michelle Reagan called for Maricopa County Recorder Adrian Fontes to seek a court order keeping select polling places open past 7 p.m. due to several reports of voters having issues with equipment malfunctions in closed polling places. So Reagan wrote in the tweet, in light of today's issues at Maricopa County polling places, they should seriously consider asking Superior Court to have selected locations open later than 7 p.m. And Fontes told the Arizona Republic about 1:30 p.m. that his office was working with the county's attorney office and considering the option of keeping polling sites open past 7 p.m. so that people who could not vote this morning would have a longer window of time to vote. But the Board of Supervisors squashed the idea. And when voting began at 6 a.m., 62 polling places across the county had not been set up. And the issue stemmed from an issue with a county IT contractor Insight, according to an email from Varvel to Maricopa County Board of Supervisors staff. So the contractor, which the county used during the Congressional District 8 election in May, was hired to set up the county's site books, which stores voter registration information and allows voters to check in at the polls. So the check-in equipment actually allows poll workers to verify the identity of the voters and make sure they get the correct ballot, and it depends on an internet connection to access the voter registration database. Now, Insight was supposed to deploy 103 technicians to install the technology on Monday, but only 73 showed. And when the recorder's office realized that the contractor was behind the installations, it attempted to train some of its staff to help with the setup, but more than 60 of the county's 503 voting locations were not ready for voters at 6 a.m. Tuesday. So at 10 a.m., only 4 sites were still closed, and all were open by 11:30 a.m., though voters reported issues at polling places well into the afternoon. And Fontes said he's working with the Secretary of State's office and Maricopa County Board of Supervisors to petition the Superior Court to keep some polling locations open late. So if the court grants the petition, a handful of sites across the county will stay open for an additional 2 hours, which will push results back to 10 p.m. And I'm going to switch over, let you guys take a look at those Florida results one more time. And I'm going to keep checking on everything for you guys, get as much information as possible. Going to check over on Facebook and make sure you guys don't have any questions. Harold Stark said he felt the earthquake as well, not scary. That's good. And Christy Keaton over on Facebook, encouraging people to vote. And now we are at the top of the hour. It's 10 o'clock Central Time. So going to check again, see if any Arizona results came in. Doesn't look like it yet. But we can go through more of the explanation a little bit from Vox. We talked about Arizona. but wanted to move on to Florida. So in Florida, and this is from Vox, so Representative Ron DeSantis and State Agricultural Commissioner Adam Putnam are the two main contenders for Florida governor. And you know that Ron DeSantis took that nomination. So DeSantis desperately sought and outright asked for President Trump's endorsement and got it. And polling was very tight, although the Trump endorsement was expected to push DeSantis over the top, and it definitely did. So the Democrats were Gwen Graham, a former member of Congress, was the presumed front runner, but as you saw, Mayor Andrew Gillum took that gubernatorial nomination. But polling did show Gwen Graham 8 points or more ahead of the three men immediately behind her in the Democratic field. And Graham's dad was a governor and senator, and she has the support of national Democrats like Senator Kirsten Gillibrand and House Democratic Whip Steny Hoyer. And Tallahassee Mayor Andrew Gillum has attracted a lot of excitement on the left. He supports Medicare for all and got the Bernie Sanders endorsement. And some operatives in the state think he could surge late. Former Miami Beach Mayor Philip Levine and businessman Jeff Green are also polling in double digits and have a lot of money on hand. So for the Senate, it was Rick Scott versus Bill Nelson. And as you know, President Trump endorsed Rick Scott, and he did take that nomination. So this was one of 2018's most unexpectedly competitive Senate races, and Scott is maybe the GOP's best Senate recruit this cycle, a pretty popular two-term governor with as much money to spend as he wants. And it says his money advantage, he's outspent Nelson by a 4-to-1 margin thus far, may explain his narrow lead in the polls. And Democrats in the state hope that as Nelson ramps up his own spending, the race will even out. But again, it's a statewide race. It's a statewide race in Florida with two credible candidates. It'll be close. Cook says it's also a toss-up. And going to check my Twitter one more time. And make sure you guys don't have any comments or questions. And going to check those Arizona numbers one more time to see if they are there yet. Unfortunately not, but the incumbents that are running on uncontested have been named, have been projected as the winners. So we can go through those real quick. In U.S. House District 1, Tom O'Halloran took the Democratic nomination as he is the uncontested incumbent. And in U.S. House District 3, Raul Grijalva is also the uncontested incumbent. And in U.S. House District 4, Paul Gosar is the uncontested incumbent for the Republican Party. And Andy Biggs, the uncontested incumbent in U.S. House District 5. And for U.S. House District 6, the uncontested incumbent is David Schweikert. I want to say that right. In U.S. House District 9, Hero Tipirney is the uncontested Democratic nominee. In U.S. House District 8, In U.S. House District 9, Greg Stanton is the uncontested Democratic nominee. Now, 2 uncontested candidates for Attorney General. On the Democratic side, January Contreras, and on the Republican side, Mark Brnovich. And for Secretary of State, Katie Hobbs, uncontested Democratic candidate, Democratic nominee now. And for Treasurer, Mark Manoyle, the uncontested Democratic nominee. So going through real quick the what to watch, a little bit about what to expect. And this is from the New York Times. So Senator Jeff Flake, a Republican who has been a persistent critic of President Trump, is not seeking re-election. The Republican primary field to replace Mr. Flake includes Representative Martha McSally, as well as candidates who have highlighted their loyalty to President Trump. Kelly Ward, a former state senator, and Joe Arpaio, the former sheriff, whose conviction for criminal contempt was pardoned by the president last year. And on the Democratic side, Representative Kristen Sinema, a centrist Democrat, will face off against Deidre Aboud, a progressive. And Mrs. Sinema, a lawyer, has a significant lead over Ms. Aboud in both fundraising and the polls. And some of you have been saying there are some new Trump tweets so I'll share those with you guys. Starting 3 hours ago, he said, such a fantastic win for Ron DeSantis and the people of the great state of Florida. Ron will be a fantastic governor on to November. And then he tweeted out 2 hours ago, congratulations to Governor Rick Scott of Florida on his conclusive Republican primary win. He will be a great senator. And then he tweeted out 2 hours ago, report just got out, China hacked Hillary Clinton's private email server. Are they sure it wasn't Russia? Just kidding. What are the odds that the FBI and the DOJ are right on top of this? Actually, a very big story, much classified information. And then he tweeted out, add the 2026 World Cup to our long list of accomplishments. And then he said, our new trade deal with Mexico focuses on farmers, growth for our country, tearing down trade barriers, jobs, and having companies continue to pour back into our country. It will be a big hit. And he tweeted out, new poll, a majority of Americans think that John Brennan and James Comey should have their security clearances revoked. Not surprised at Fox News. And going to check Twitter again. Make sure you guys don't have any questions. And I'm going to take a look at what we are waiting for. Arizona. So for those of you that are commenting percentages of McSally and Ward in Arizona, Shanta James and Ryan Bisek, please comment those links on there so that I can click them and see where you are getting your statistics from. So looking on some different sites, there is nothing on Vox yet or CBS News. Okay, sorry for the delay. Just trying to get those Arizona numbers for you guys, and nothing is coming up yet. Okay, but switching back over, I am not going to be able to stay up with you guys the whole night to wait on those Arizona results, so I really apologize for that. I am going to go get the equipment from Joe for the rally tomorrow. And, well, the rally Thursday, I'm sorry, but it is going to be so much fun. So make sure to tune into that on Thursday. It is going to be so much fun. We are going to be there all day long. So stay tuned, and I will see you guys soon. And once again, for Right Side Broadcasting Network, I'm Alyssa Ashe. Thank you for joining.